Sarah stared defiantly at the HOA rep, her sun-kissed face creased with determination. My garden stays. Suddenly, a bulldozer rumbled to life, its metal teeth poised to crush her lush oasis. Sarah's heart pounded as she raced to protect her life's work, a certified wildlife reserve hidden in plain sight. This was war, and Sarah refused to go down without a fight. Sarah slammed the HOA letter down on the kitchen table, her hands shaking with fury. Can you believe this? They're threatening to fine me if I don't cut down my overgrown plants. Her husband, Michael, scanned the formal notice, his brow furrowing. But your garden is certified as a protected wildlife habitat. How can they do this? Sarah ran a hand through her tangled curls, her green eyes flashing. Apparently, the HOA president thinks my jungle is an eyesore. I guess native flowers and nesting birds don't fit their manicured image. Michael wrapped an arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. You've worked so hard on this. We can't just let them bulldoze it. Sarah straightened, her jaw set with determination. No way. This is my life's passion. I'm not giving it up without a fight. The next day, Sarah marched into the HOA meeting, her chin held high. The president, a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Wilkins, eyed her garden-stained overalls with disdain. Mrs. Holden, I see you've received our letter regarding the excessive foliage on your property. Sarah squared her shoulders. Yes, and I'm here to appeal your decision. My garden is a certified wildlife habitat. It's protected by state law. Mrs. Wilkins sniffed. Well, it's an eyesore, and it's bringing down property values. I'm afraid you'll have to cut it back, substantially. Sarah felt her blood boil. This garden is my life's work. It provides food and shelter for dozens of species. You can't just bulldoze it because it doesn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. The other HOA members murmured uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. Mrs. Wilkins's lips thinned. I'm sorry, but the decision is final. You have 2 weeks to bring your plants into compliance, or will be forced to take legal action. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. This isn't over. She spun on her heel and stalked out, her mind racing with ways to protect her beloved garden. That night, as she and Michael pored over gardening magazines, a plan began to take shape. What if we turned my garden into a certified reserve? That would make it legally protected. Michael's eyes widened. You think that would work? Sarah nodded, a determined glint in her eye. It's worth a shot. I'm not going to let them destroy everything I've built. The next morning, Sarah was on the phone, her fingers drumming restlessly on the kitchen counter. Yes, I'd like to apply for certification as a wildlife habitat reserve. It's an urgent matter. My homeowners association is threatening to fine me if I don't cut down my garden. The voice on the other end hummed thoughtfully. I see. Well, the process can take some time, but I'll do my best to expedite it. Sarah exhaled in relief. Thank you, that would be a huge help. This garden is my life's passion, and I can't bear the thought of losing it. After placing the call, she turned to Michael, a spark of hope in her eyes. They're going to fast-track the certification. If I can get it approved before the HOA's deadline, they'll have to back off. Michael pulled her into a reassuring hug. I know you can do this, honey. You've poured your heart and soul into that garden. It's not going down without a fight. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah was a whirlwind of activity, documenting the diverse plant and animal life in her garden, gathering letters of support from local naturalists, and meticulously filling out the certification paperwork. The day before the HOA's deadline, she rushed to the town hall, clutching the official seal of approval. I have it. My garden is now a certified wildlife habitat reserve. The clerk's eyes widened as she scanned the document. Well, I'll be. Congratulations, Mrs. Holden. This should protect your property from any HOA interference. Sarah beamed, a triumphant gleam in her eye. I knew they couldn't bulldoze my life's work. As she hurried home, She couldn't wait to deliver the news to Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA. This was one battle she was determined to win. When Sarah stormed into the next HOA meeting, the room fell silent. Mrs. Wilkins eyed her warily. "Mrs. Holden, I trust you've had time to consider our request." Sarah slammed the certification document on the table, a defiant smile on her face. "I've done better than that. My garden is now a legally protected wildlife habitat reserve." The HOA members erupted in murmurs, and Mrs. Wilkins's face flushed with frustration. But that's not possible. You can't just circumvent our regulations like that." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Oh, but I can. And I did. Your precious property values won't be affected by my eyesore of a garden anymore." Mrs. Wilkins opened and closed her mouth, at a loss for words. Sarah savored the moment, knowing that she had won this round. As she strode out of the meeting, her shoulders were squared with pride. Her garden was safe, and she had proven that passion and determination could overcome even the most persistent opposition. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Sarah. With her garden now officially certified as a protected wildlife habitat, she was in a celebratory mood, but she knew the battle with the HOA was far from over. As she tended to her flourishing oasis, she couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. The native flowers were in full bloom, their vibrant hues attracting a parade of hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies. Sarah smiled, knowing that her hard work had paid off. But the peace was short-lived. One morning, as she stepped outside to water her plants, she noticed a flurry of activity down the street. Her heart sank as she recognized the familiar HOA trucks pulling up in front of her neighbor's house. Dropping her watering can, she hurried over, her mind racing. What's going on? The HOA representative, a stern-faced man named Mr. Johnson, turned to her with a cold expression. "We're here to enforce our regulations. Your neighbor's landscaping is in violation of the HOA guidelines." Sarah's brow furrowed. "But my garden is certified as a protected wildlife habitat. Surely you can't." Mr. Johnson held up a hand, silencing her. "The certification doesn't apply to your neighbors. They're required to maintain their property according to our standards." Sarah's stomach twisted with dread. "But this is a connected ecosystem. If you start ripping out their plants, it will devastate the wildlife in my garden." Mr. Johnson shrugged, unperturbed. "Not our problem. The HOA has a responsibility to maintain the aesthetic of the neighborhood." Panic rising in her chest, Sarah turned to her neighbor, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Perez. "Please, you can't let them do this. Your garden is part of my habitat reserve." Mrs. Perez's eyes were filled with sorrow. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I tried to fight them, but they threatened to fine me if I didn't comply." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "This isn't fair. You're just trying to create a beautiful, sustainable landscape." Mr. Johnson's expression remained impassive. "Rules are rules, Mrs. Holden. If your neighbor doesn't remove the offending plants, we'll be forced to take action." Sarah watched in horror as the landscaping crew began tearing out Mrs. Perez's carefully tended flowers and shrubs. Her heart ached for the displaced pollinators and birds that had found refuge in the lush greenery. Turning to Mr. Johnson, she pleaded, "Please, you have to stop this. You're destroying an entire ecosystem." But the HOA representative simply shook his head. "The decision has been made. If you have any further concerns, you can take them up with the board." As the trucks rumbled away, Sarah stood there, her eyes brimming with tears of frustration. She had won the battle for her own garden, but now the fate of the entire habitat hung in the balance. Determined to find a solution, she hurried back home, her mind racing with ideas. She had to find a way to protect the interconnected web of life she had worked so hard to nurture. Sarah paced back and forth in her living room, her mind whirring with possibilities. She couldn't let the HOA's destructive actions destroy the delicate balance of her certified wildlife habitat. "There has to be a way to stop them," she muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. Michael watched her anxiously, his own concern evident. I wish I could help, honey, but the HOA seems pretty determined to enforce their rules. Sarah paused, her eyes suddenly alight with an idea. That's it. The rules. She rushed to her desk, rifling through the stack of paperwork she had gathered for the habitat certification. Aha! She exclaimed, pulling out a thick binder. The guidelines state that any actions taken within the certified reserve must be approved by the governing body. The HOA can't just come in and start ripping out plants willy-nilly. Michael's face lit up with hope. So you can use their own rules against them. Sarah nodded resolutely. Exactly. I'm going to file an urgent request for a hearing with the Habitat Conservation Board. They'll have to stop the HOA's destruction until they can review the case. Without wasting a moment, Sarah placed a call to the State Wildlife Agency, her voice laced with urgency. Yes, hello, this is Sarah Holden. I need to file an emergency request for a hearing regarding my certified wildlife habitat reserve. The representative on the other end of the line sounded concerned. I see. What seems to be the issue, Mrs. Holden? Sarah quickly explained the situation, her words tumbling out in a rush. The HOA is trying to force my neighbor to remove all her landscaping, and it's going to devastate the ecosystem in my reserve. I need to stop them before they cause irreparable harm. I understand, the representative replied. I'll expedite your request for a hearing. Can you have all the relevant documentation ready by tomorrow? Absolutely, Sarah assured her. I have everything we need to prove the importance of protecting this habitat. After ending the call, Sarah turned to Michael, a determined gleam in her eye. Okay, let's get to work. We need to gather every piece of evidence we can to make our case airtight. The next day, Sarah and Michael arrived at the State Wildlife Agency's regional office, their arms laden with folders and binders. As they were ushered into the hearing room, Sarah felt a surge of hope. This was her chance to save her beloved garden and the delicate web of life it supported. The panel of experts greeted them with solemn expressions, and Sarah knew the stakes were high. Taking a deep breath, she launched into her impassioned plea, her words painting a vivid picture of the rich biodiversity her garden had fostered. When she finished, the panel members exchanged thoughtful glances. The chair, a seasoned ecologist, cleared his throat. Mrs. Holden, your case is compelling. We'll need to review the evidence thoroughly, but we will issue a temporary stay on any further action by the HOA until we've reached a decision. Sarah's heart soared with relief, and she squeezed Michael's hand tightly. Thank you so much. I won't let you down. As they exited the building, Sarah felt a renewed sense of determination. The battle was far from over, but she was more convinced than ever that she could protect her beloved garden and the thriving ecosystem it had become. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity for Sarah and Michael. They pored over the documentation, meticulously preparing their case for the upcoming Habitat Conservation Board hearing. Sarah spent hours in her garden, cataloging the diverse array of plant and animal life that had taken refuge within its lush boundaries. She captured stunning photographs, documenting the vibrant blooms, the fluttering wings of butterflies, and the patient vigilance of the nesting birds. This is our proof, she told Michael, her eyes shining with determination. We have to show them just how much life depends on this little oasis we've created. Michael nodded, his expression serious. I know, honey. We can't let the HOA destroy everything you've worked so hard for. As the hearing date approached, Sarah found herself growing increasingly anxious. She had put her heart and soul into this garden, and the thought of losing it was almost too much to bear. When the day finally arrived, Sarah and Michael arrived at the State Wildlife Agency's office, their hands clasped tightly together. The panel of experts greeted them with solemn expressions, and Sarah took a deep breath, prepared to make her case. As she presented the evidence, her voice grew more confident, her passion igniting the room. She spoke eloquently about the delicate balance of the ecosystem, the importance of providing safe havens for endangered species, and the role her garden played in the larger environmental landscape. The panel members listened intently, their expressions thoughtful. When Sarah finished, the chair, a distinguished-looking woman, cleared her throat. "Mrs. Holden, your presentation has been most compelling. It's clear that your garden is not just a personal passion, but a vital part of the local ecosystem." Sarah felt her heart race with hope, but she forced herself to remain composed. The woman continued, "However, the HOA's actions are also understandable from their perspective. They have a responsibility to maintain the aesthetic standards of the neighborhood." Sarah's stomach twisted with dread, and she opened her mouth to protest, but the woman raised a hand, silencing her. "But," she continued, "we believe there may be a compromise solution that would satisfy both parties." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Please, anything. I'll do whatever it takes." The woman offered a small smile. "We propose that you work with the HOA to create a buffer zone around your certified habitat, where your neighbors can maintain their landscaping to the HOA's standards, while still preserving the core of your garden." Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders, and she nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect my garden and the wildlife it supports." The panel members exchanged satisfied nods, and the chair turned to Sarah, her expression serious. "Very well, Mrs. Holden. We'll issue a formal ruling requiring the HOA to work with you on this compromise solution. But be warned, any further attempts to disrupt the habitat will be met with severe consequences." Sarah couldn't contain her joy, and as she and Michael hurried out of the building, she felt a surge of hope. The battle had been won, and her beloved garden would be safe. In the wake of the Habitat Conservation Board's ruling, Sarah and Michael set to work, determined to implement the compromise solution that would protect the core of Sarah's beloved garden. They met with Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA board, approaching the negotiations with a calm, yet firm demeanor. Sarah knew she had the upper hand, but she also understood the need for compromise. "We're willing to work with you to create a buffer zone around the certified habitat," she explained, gesturing to the detailed maps and diagrams they had prepared. "This will allow our neighbors to maintain their landscaping to your standards, while still preserving the heart of the garden." Mrs. Wilkins eyed the plans skeptically, her lips pursed in a thin line. "And how exactly do you propose we go about this? It all seems rather unconventional." Sarah took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Look, I know this isn't the ideal situation for the HOA, but the Habitat Conservation Board has made it clear that they won't tolerate any further disruption to the ecosystem. We need to find a solution that works for everyone." After several tense discussions, the two sides finally reached an agreement. The HOA would allow Sarah to maintain the core of her garden, but her neighbors would be responsible for maintaining a tidy, manicured buffer zone around the perimeter. As the work began, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and accomplishment. Her garden would be protected, and the delicate web of life it supported would be allowed to thrive. But the triumph was short-lived, as Sarah soon discovered a new threat on the horizon. One day, while tending to her plants, she noticed a small yellow sign posted at the edge of her property, a zoning notice. Panic gripped her as she read the fine print. The city was planning to build a new road that would cut right through the heart of her certified habitat. Hands trembling, she rushed inside to share the news with Michael. "They're going to destroy it all. After everything we fought for, they're just going to plow through my garden." Michael wrapped his arms around her, his own expression one of dismay. "We can't let them do this, Sarah. Not after all the work we've put in to protect this place." Sarah pulled away, her eyes burning with determination. "No, we won't. We have to fight this, Michael. I won't let them take away my life's work without a fight." Without hesitation, she began drafting a strongly worded letter to the city planning department, outlining the legal protections of her certified habitat and the devastating impact the proposed road would have. As she typed, the words flowed with a passionate intensity, fueled by her unwavering commitment to her garden and the diverse array of life it sheltered. "They can't just steamroll over this," she muttered under her breath. "I won't let them." With the letter sent, Sarah and Michael held their breath, waiting anxiously for the city's response. They knew that another battle was looming, but they were determined to do whatever it took to save their beloved garden reserve. The waiting was agonizing. Sarah paced the length of her living room, her fingers tapping restlessly on the arm of the sofa as she waited for a response from the city planning department. Michael watched her, a concerned expression on his face. "Honey, you need to try and relax. Wearing a hole in the floor isn't going to make them respond any faster." Sarah shot him a wry look. "I can't help it, Michael. This is our whole lives' work they're threatening to destroy. I won't let them take it away without a fight." Just then, the phone rang, and Sarah lunged for it, her heart pounding. "Hello." The voice on the other end was formal and bureaucratic. "Mrs. Holden, this is James Simmons from the City Planning Department. I've received your letter regarding the proposed road project." Sarah's grip tightened on the receiver. "And?" There was a brief pause. "Well, after reviewing the documentation you provided, as well as the Habitat Conservation Board's ruling, we've decided to reconsider the road's proposed route." Sarah felt a surge of hope. "You mean you're not going to build through my garden?" "Not as it's currently planned, no," Simmons replied. "We're going to explore alternative options that minimize the impact on your certified wildlife habitat." Sarah let out a shaky breath, her knees feeling weak with relief. "Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I can't tell you how much this means to me." "I understand, Mrs. Holden," Simmons said. "Your garden is a remarkable and valuable asset to the community. We'll be in touch with updates as we explore alternative solutions." After hanging up the phone, Sarah turned to Michael, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "They're going to reroute the road. My garden is safe." Michael swept her into a tight hug, his own face beaming. "I knew you could do it, Sarah. Your hard work and dedication have paid off." In the days that followed, Sarah threw herself into tending to her garden with renewed vigor. The native plants were thriving, and the buzzing of bees and the chirping of birds filled the air. She felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that she had fought to protect this oasis of life. As the weeks passed, Sarah received updates from the city planning department, each one bringing more good news. The proposed road's route had been adjusted, and her garden would remain untouched. The hard-won battle had been won. One sunny afternoon, as Sarah strolled through her lush, vibrant garden, she couldn't help but smile. The once threatened plants were now bursting with color, and the wildlife seemed to have a renewed sense of energy and vitality. "We did it," she whispered, running her fingers through the delicate petals of a purple coneflower. "We saved our little piece of paradise." With a heart full of gratitude and a renewed determination to protect this precious ecosystem, Sarah knew that her work was far from over. But for now, she could revel in the hard-won victory, safe in the knowledge that her beloved garden would continue to thrive for years to come. In the aftermath of her hard-won battle with the HOA and the city planning department, Sarah found herself basking in a newfound sense of purpose and accomplishment. Her once threatened garden had not only been saved, but it had also been elevated to the status of a certified wildlife habitat reserve, a testament to her unwavering dedication and passion. As the seasons turned, Sarah marveled at the vibrant tapestry of life that unfolded within the boundaries of her oasis. Butterflies danced among the native blooms, their delicate wings catching the sun's rays. Hummingbirds hovered effortlessly, sipping nectar from the vibrant flowers. And the chorus of birdsong filled the air, a symphony of nature's symphony. But Sarah's triumph was not just about preserving her own garden. It was about creating a ripple effect that inspired others in the community to embrace more sustainable and ecologically minded practices. One by one, her neighbors began to take notice of the thriving habitat on her property. Some were initially skeptical, their manicured lawns and meticulously pruned shrubs, a stark contrast to Sarah's lush and untamed garden. But as they witnessed the abundance of life it supported, their attitudes began to shift. I never realized how much diversity we were missing in our yards. One neighbor confessed to Sarah as they admired the fluttering swarm of monarch butterflies. "This is incredible." Encouraged by this newfound interest, Sarah began hosting educational workshops, sharing her knowledge and expertise with her fellow residents. She guided them through the process of establishing their own certified wildlife habitats, empowering them to transform their landscapes into sanctuaries for local flora and fauna. The change was gradual, but undeniable. Slowly but surely, the once uniform neighborhood began to blossom with pockets of native plants, bird feeders, and pollinator-friendly gardens. The HOA, once the bane of Sarah's existence, even began to embrace the shift, recognizing the value of these oases of biodiversity. As Sarah walked through her garden, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. What had once been a battle had now blossomed into a community-wide movement, one that celebrated the beauty and importance of preserving our natural environments. "This is just the beginning," she told Michael, her eyes shining with determination. "If we can do it here, we can inspire others to do the same, one garden at a time." And with that, Sarah set her sights on the future, ready to continue her crusade for a more sustainable and harmonious coexistence between humans and the natural world.